What is the strangest thing you've seen that you cannot explain? I sneezed my back into place after being couch-bound for nearly a year and a half. Within 15 minutes, it felt like that year and a half was a distant memory. I had painful nerve problems in my shoulders from work to the point that I would wake up in severe pain if I didn't take painkillers before bed. I passed out drunk from low blood pressure in my boyfriend's kitchen, fell back and hit the ground hard, and I haven't had any issues with my shoulders since. His brother-in-law fell down a small flight of stairs backwards while drunk in the same house, and it fixed his back issue. That house is magic for drunk people. Me and a buddy were at his house watching TV, and some person on the screen was eating a strawberry. I don't really care for them, but it looked good, and I asked if, by chance, he had any strawberries in the house. He almost laughed at me. We were to 20-year-olds with a higher chance of beer or mac cheese or Fruit Loops than strawberries. About 20 minutes later, there's a knock at the door and he goes to answer it. He yells out to me to come see something. His mom is standing at the door with one of those low-cut boxes with a bunch of strawberries. He said, "Tell Ag Kim what you said." She looks a little strange and says, "I was driving home and there was a guy selling strawberries out of the back of his truck, and I thought, I bet David and his friends would like some strawberries." My buddy says, "Well, you blew it. We all have one wish and you wasted yours on strawberries." For about 10 years a man would call my home, ask for me, and then ask me if my feet were ticklish. This was 30 or so years ago. No cholera or anything like that. I would engage him if my family was home. If I said my feet were ticklish, he'd ask me to ask the person sitting closest to me to tickle them. He always hung up before we could ask questions to figure him out. Sometimes he'd get me on a payphone. Like, I'd be walking home from school and a payphone would ring. It was always him. Still don't know who it was. That's absolutely horrifying. Didn't happen to me, but my mom. She was going through a tough patch, not making a lot of money. Single mom with 2 kids. Was stressed over bills, but had just enough to cover them. Unfortunately, left us with no money. She was a hard worker and would do multiple shifts at the hospital. Still, it was hard this particular month. She was sweeping and prayed for help. As she turned around to empty the dustbin into the trash, there was a crisp $100 bill perfectly laying on top of the filled trash can. No one lived at our house with us. She was never able to explain it. A week before my twin brother died, I was in the passenger side of the car, and an awful thought with visuals that popped in my mind. I was at his house and it was empty. His door was shut, but I had an overwhelming feeling he was no longer alive. It was the first time I've cried over just a thought. I also had him visit me, a dream, after, and ask where he was, and he didn't know he was dead yet. I showed him his death certificate and all the paperwork my mom was filling out. I can't explain it, but seeing that a week ahead helped me process his death better than my siblings and mom. His 10-year is coming up in March, and I've been trying to dream about him, no luck. Years ago, when my wife was pregnant with our second child and about to give birth, my mom came to stay with us for a few days to help take care of our oldest child. One early evening, mom asked for a pen, paper, and an envelope. When I gave them to her, she wrote on the paper, sealed it in the envelope, and gave it to me, saying, "Put this in your pocket and don't open it. You'll know when," she said. 30 minutes later, my wife announced it was time to go to the hospital. She was in labor. So we did, and about 9 hours later our second daughter was born at 3:45 a.m. She weighed 8 pounds, 11 ounces, and was 20 inches long. This being pre-cell phone days, I called my mom from the hospital to tell her the news. She answered the phone and immediately said, "Before you say anything, open the envelope." I did. It said, "Girl, 3:45 a.m., 8 pounds, 11 ounces, 20 inches. I kept that paper for years. When my mom died, I went to our documents safe where we kept it, but it was gone. I'm sorry to say, but your mom was a witch." Living in a dorm, no roommate. Night before, 2-hour open book file. I put my book in the middle of the floor so I'll stumble over it on the way out. The floor has nothing else on it. In the morning it's gone. I look all over the room, can't find it. I think I'm hysterically blind. so I feel over every inch of the floor with my hands. Nothing. I go get a cup of coffee and come back. Still nothing. By now there's only 1 hour for the test. I go anyway and do the best I can. Naturally, when I get back, the book is in the middle of the floor exactly where I put it. Probably a prank, but how? I'm not that heavy a sleeper. Nobody took credit for it. My family used to travel between Utah and Nevada a few times a year when I was growing up. We often saw wildlife on the side of the road or crossing the road. There's one thing that still baffles all of us, though. It was in the middle of the day, on a long, hot, empty stretch of road. I was a teen. Myself, my mom, and a couple of my siblings saw something scurry across the road. It looked like a huge egg the size of an ostrich egg, maybe larger, with 2 skinny legs and feet poking out the bottom of it. We cannot figure out what it possibly could have been. It was a baby ostrich that only broke the legs out of the egg. Not exactly seen, but it's strange. I was around 6 and on Wednesday evening, I went to bed. I woke up and it was Friday. I remember asking my mom, why is it Friday when yesterday was Wednesday? She said yesterday was Thursday. Obviously, I asked her what I did on Thursday because the last thing I remember is going to sleep on Wednesday. She named some activities and I remembered none of that. I never found out why I don't remember the Thursday. Oh, shoot. I have one. When I was a kid, I was awfully sick at one point. Completely bedridden. I was super hungry or something, so I wanted to go get my mom. So I fell out of bed, but I couldn't move after that. I was just sort of worming around in agony. Until 4, I want to say hippies, tie-dye shirts, baggy bell-bottom pants, long hair. They just appeared in my room and I instinctively knew they were in a band. One of them was like, "Yo, dude, your mom's asleep. Want us to go get her?" So I just mutely nodded. They disappeared. And a few minutes later, my mom came up and checked on me. I was dating a girl eons ago, and she left my house one night after hanging out to go home. She called my house about 10 minutes later because she'd curbed her car trying to not hit a dog that looked like a ghost. I was annoyed, thought she was full of it, helped her unlock her steering wheel, and she was on her way. Years later, I was riding with a completely separate, unrelated girlfriend, and I was looking down at some CDs in my lap to try and figure out what to play next. Out of the blue, she yells "fuck," and then she locks the brakes up and we slide to a stop. I asked, "WTF are you doing?" And she responded, "Did you not see that dog run right in front of us? It looked like a ghost valve." I looked around, and sure enough, we're right around the same spot where my previous girlfriend had also seen this ghost canine valve thing, which freaked me out once that clicked. So while I technically never saw it myself, the inexplicable, ethereal canine freaked out to different GFS of mine, and none of us have a clue as to what it actually was. So in 2013, I was smoking a cig with my buddy and his schizophrenic neighbor in Denton, Texas. This neighbor was the nice kind of off, never acting mean or violent, so we were actually pretty good friends. Anyway, during the middle of the cig, the neighbor acts like he just got hit with an energy wave and runs out into the yard. He begins to start rhythmically dancing and chanting about the meteor. What I could understand was that he felt the meteor, and he said that he felt it falling, and then with a final jerk, he said the meteor had exploded. At that same time, on the other side of the world, an enormous meteor exploded over Russia. https://www.youtube.com watch v=bptpr0jvxw if you are wondering. Note, there was no advanced warning. And yes, part of me does suspect that he somehow knew. Doing some door-to-door work, I knocked onto a house I only driven past in a city on the other side of the world from where I grew up. As I looked around the deck I was standing on, I noticed a particular window had a view through another window. I distinctly remembered all the details, what was outside the second window, even though I had never before seen it in my life. As the door opened, the lady standing at it gave a bewildered face that I must have mirrored. The first thing she says is, "I know you. I promise. There is no way our paths had previously crossed." As we got to talking, I was sharing a personal story, of which she finished the last details for me. I was stunned, and she said, I'm sure you've told me that before. I was tripping out and ended coming back to the house a few times to just chat and see where or if anyone we both knew had crossed paths. To this day I still can't explain it. I saw a beer bottle dropped from a 13th floor window into bricks and it bounced. I think this is just a coincidence, but it's weird nonetheless. I don't know a better word for it, a boy to message me. It's one specific boy who was a close friend when we were 12 to 13. Once we left to go to high school, we kinda lost touch. I think about messaging him sometimes and usually within 10 minutes I'll get a message from him. It's really bizarre and it only happens with this one dude. Once we didn't talk for a year and then he messaged me randomly after I thought about reaching out. I asked him why he messaged and he said that he felt a weird feeling wash over him and it's like it pushed him to message me. It's really bizarre, although probably just a coincidence. I was driving away from a gas station. Out of nowhere, a guy in a suit comes running up to my minivan and starts yanking the door. As if he knew me, he began pleading, "Simon, let me in." Luckily my doors were locked. I asked him who the hell he was through my window. He looked genuinely surprised that I wouldn't let him in. After I refused to let him in, his facial expression inverted as if he just realized something horrible. He let go of my car, said something to the effect of, "You're one of them, aren't you?" Then he ran away behind the gas station and into the woods. Full suit and tie, nice shoes, extremely frantic in nature, zero explanation. I'm praying it was some elaborate troll or meth or something, because the look in that man's eyes was pure terror when I didn't let him in. It wasn't what I saw so much as felt. I was on my way to Petersburg, a small island in Alaska. The runway was too foggy, so I had to stay in Juneau at a hotel for the night. Anyway, the next morning, I was sleeping and had my hand dangling in between the bed and the wall, and I swear on everything, I felt something grab my hand. It had a grip like a very firm handshake, and it literally woke me up out of a dead sleep. I actually got up and checked under the bed and nothing was there. It was very weird. Did you stay up with the light on, rocking and sobbing in the corner the rest of the night? Seems like the only logical thing to do after that. Years ago, my husband and I were lazing about watching a movie. Adverts came on and we weren't paying much attention, but just as one finished, we both recognized the place it was filmed. Pretty sure we had been there. Took a few seconds to find the remote and rewind, still talking about our visit to the place on the advert. It wasn't there. We fast forwarded, thinking we missed it. Nothing. Rewound again. Nothing. It's nothing very exciting, but it's totally unexplainable and we still get weirded out when neither of us brings it up. Was driving home from work one afternoon with my brother and cousin in the car. As we were sitting in traffic, I noticed high up in the sky and way out in the distance a small motionless black square. I pointed it out and both my brother and my cousin spotted it quickly, so I know it wasn't in my head. It just remained still for about 45 minutes and then the sun had set and it was too dark to spot it any longer. It just stayed in the exact same spot the whole time, and while it was really far away, you could still tell it was a perfect square shape. Once I got home, I went online to see if there were any mentions of it anywhere and there was nothing. To this day, I still think about it and wonder WTF I was looking at. I was taking a trip with my then girlfriend, and we had to cross the Hudson River to get to where we were going. There are only a handful of bridges across, and I know them all from having grown up in the area. On that particular trip, we were supposed to take the Bear Mountain Bridge, but I got off the wrong exit and passed it. We decided it wasn't a big deal. The next bridge, the Newburgh Beacon, was actually closer to where we were going. It would just bring us over a little bit past our destination, but not enough to really matter. So we kept on driving, not really paying specific attention to where we were, since it was probably 20 to 30 minutes until we got there. Well, we never crossed the Newburgh Beacon that day. We also never crossed the Bear Mountain, and we certainly didn't drive an extra half an hour to the Mid-Hudson or turn around and go back to the tap. When we did take a minute to check where we were and how close the bridge was, we found we were already on the other side of the river. No bridge. We were just already there. So either there's a secret tunnel somewhere under the river we had our memories erased, or we found some kind of spatial rift somewhere in the Hudson Valley. As a full-grown adult, I was telling my mother about this house I was in with a dream I had. It was brown, had 2 bedrooms, 2 floors, L-shaped stairs. I went into full detail about this house from my dream. Anyway, apparently the house I described was the house I was born in. Not like, born. I was born in a hospital, but the house my family lived in for 2 years prior to my birth, that we all moved out of when I was 7 or 8 months old. At first I thought maybe my brain got it from pictures had seen, but honestly the level of detail wasn't shown in any pictures we had of me such a young age. Mostly, it were close-ups, so you couldn't really see the background much. Best guess to this day is my brain picking up really old and obscure memories. Other than that, I'm not sure how TF I knew anything about this house, let alone the layout, furniture setup, etc. I was driving home from work on the back roads and was driving behind a car that was the same make, model, and year of my car, just a different color. Further down the road, we both get into the turn lane to turn left onto a long, straight road with open fields on either side. The car in front of me turns onto this row, and I wait for a car to pass, and then turn as well. It takes less than 5 seconds. However, when I turn onto the road, the car that had been driving in front of me was nowhere to be seen. This road has no turn-offs and it's long and straight, so you can see pretty far ahead of you. The car had just vanished. Tana, I still think about it today. I have a dash cam now, but I wish I had had one back then because I question what actually happened that day. Went hiking late at night with my buddy, when something big and bright flew right over us above the tree line. It was so bright we couldn't even look at it, and whatever it was, it didn't make a sound. Actually, it was probably the most quiet moment of my life. I remember saying "what the fuck," but no sound came out of my mouth. Only lasted a few seconds and it was over. I once saw someone who looked and dressed exactly like me, with my mannerisms and posture, standing outside a pub I had visited only a week earlier around the same time in the evening. He was finishing a smoke and went back inside a few seconds after I'd been able to notice and get a good look at him. I smoked at the time as well, so it was something I had been doing. Not sure if I saw a glimpse of my own past from a third-person perspective or what, or if I just have a twin somewhere in Dublin. For Amish men in a room counting money with a money counter while simultaneously weighing out my ounce of weed just wasn't what I was expecting. When I worked in the medical field, I had a dream one night about a patient of mine, a very kind elderly woman whom I visited once or twice a week. In the dream, she came to me, dancing, and called out to me that she wasn't hurting anymore. I was so happy watching her dance after seeing her decline for years. When I got to work the next morning, I told my coworkers about the dream, and later that morning we got the call from her daughter that she had passed away the night before. I cannot explain that, but I am glad I had told my coworkers about it before the call and not after, otherwise they'd never have believed me. Such a bizarre experience, but so wonderful to feel she was at peace. This is awfully sad but also really sweet. I once met this young homeless guy, probably about 10 years ago. Acted like he knew me. When I said I had no idea who he was, he said, "Isn't your name Beardmonger and you work in radio broadcasting?" I got right freaked out because I had been applying to colleges for radio and there was no reason for him to know my name. I said no, but I've wanted to work in radio. "Who are you?" He responded saying it wasn't important and to ignore him as sometimes he gets confused between the present and the future, and just left. I never saw him again. It threw me off completely. I abandoned the idea to go into radio almost out of fear. Either time travel is possible or someone got you really good. So, you didn't end up in radio, which means you altered the future, which means we are all living in an altered timeline, which means 2020 is your fault. Thanks. Standing outside of a convenience store, I saw 2 different cars park about a minute or so apart and go in the store. It was obvious the 2 didn't know each other, at least it seemed. After shopping, they each left in the other's car. Still can't explain it today without going down the CIA conspiracy route. Very good chance this was a very large nefarious deal. Drugs, guns, money, or humans in the trunk. Thanks for watching. Share your stories in the comments.